Amelie woke up, pulled out her phone and immediately got out of bed. Wow, it's already 11:30 in the morning. It's strange that I slept so long. It's not at all typical for a lark like me. Did last night's date have that effect on me? However, a flurry of warm messages from Kyle quickly snapped her back to the good mood. The girl hopped out of bed and headed for the bathroom. Washing her face, she looked in the mirror and pondered what qualities she possessed that had won Kyle's heart. She saw herself as an ordinary girl with brown eyes and long black wavy hair, and didn't consider herself a beauty. Amelie had met Kyle about a month ago. When he approached her in a parking lot, she was instantly taken aback. Dressed in a suit, Kyle was handsome and princely. Amelie was immediately drawn to his politeness and courtesy, the way he spoke and the beautiful words he used. Over the months she fell in love with Kyle and desired to spend her life with him. Amelie happily accepted his courtship, despite her friends' warnings that a 35-year-old man was not a suitable match for a young, beautiful girl. However, Amelie always echoed her father's words. What does it matter what others say? Kyle was good-looking, kind, loved children, and was always ready to help those in need. Yes, he was single at 35, but such things happen. The only thing that puzzled Amelie was Kyle's preference for park dates. She didn't know why it was his favourite meeting place, but one day she gathered the courage to ask Kyle, "Why do we never go anywhere else but the park? Aren't there other places?" "Well, it's not a good time," Kyle said. "You know, I don't have much money. I work as a loader. I'm sorry, Amelie, but you knew who you were starting a relationship with." Amelie wasn't embarrassed. Money was not important to her. Her mother was a teacher, and her father was, like Kyle, a loader. She grew up in a large and modest family, so the lack of money in the boyfriend's pocket did not embarrass the girl. One morning, her best friend Megan called. "Hi, dear. It's been so long since we've seen each other. I miss you so much. How are you?" Amelie answered honestly, "Well, frankly speaking, I'm tired after yesterday's evening. Kyle and I went for a walk and even went to the beach in the evening. Can you believe it, Megan? The beach looks so beautiful under the moonlight." Megan just grinned. "Great, so he's a romantic. But that's not why I called. Just imagine, Rachel is passing through our town, so I invited her over tonight. Remember Rachel from our freshman year? If you're free, come over. We'll catch up over coffee." Amelie considered the invitation. She wanted to visit and catch up with her old classmate, whom she hadn't seen for a while. But she had plans to meet Kyle for a walk that evening. It was a pity to cancel on him, and besides, Kyle didn't like changes to plans at the last minute. He took such matters very seriously. "Okay, I'll come," Amelie decided, weighting all pros and cons. Such events don't occur every day or even every month, and it's uncertain when I'll get another chance to see her, and you too. In the evening, Amelie dressed up and dialed Kyle's number. She felt a pang of anxiety. Calling Kyle that day was more challenging for her than ever. The phone seemed to ring forever until finally the long-awaited "Hello?" "Hi, honey. I'm sorry I can't meet you today." "No, everything's fine, really. My mum's not feeling well. I need to be with her. You understand, don't you?" Kyle stayed silent for a minute before finally replying, "Well, if your mum's not well, I understand. I hope she gets better soon. See you later." After hanging up the phone, Kyle was left puzzled. There was a hint of uncertainty, fear, and excitement in his beloved's voice. He was self-assured and well aware of his virtues, but he was a humble man. Despite his good looks, wealth, and exceptional abilities, he was just a simple man, dreaming of a great love. He enjoyed reading books, was often lost in thought, and in this he was strikingly similar to Amelie. Perhaps it was these traits that made him fall for her. At 35 years old, Kyle was the only one among his friends who was not married. He was searching for pure, true love, and he was steadfast in his pursuit. There were plenty of women in his life, rich heirs, top university students, and employees from his father's company. However, none of them captured his heart as Amelie did. She was simple, lively, and serene. She did not chase after wealth, but was gentle, feminine, and sophisticated. Kyle, who used to spend his entire day at his father's company, was finally lively and cheerful. Yes, he had lied about working as a loader, but he simply couldn't do it any other way. Too many disappointments had happened in the past. Amelie could hear in Kyle's voice that he was a little offended. She really wanted to meet Kyle tonight, but she also didn't want to disappoint her childhood friend, who had been persistently inviting her. Rachel lives far away, and we rarely see each other, Amelie reassured herself as she decided to attend the party with friends. As she entered the house, Megan greeted her enthusiastically. "My dear, we've been waiting for you. Why did you make us wait?" "I was getting ready. That's why I was delayed. Is Rachel here already?" Amelie asked cautiously. "Come in, you'll see," Megan responded with an awkward smile, and then grabbed Amelie's hand, leading her to the living room. Amelie was taken aback as she entered the room. Instead of Rachel, there sat Rob, a 30-year-old, Megan's cousin. Megan often talked about him. He owned a small business, 2 stores inherited from his parents, which was considered a good business in their town. Amelie was shocked. She turned to Megan and asked angrily, "Where is Rachel, who was supposed to come here from the capital?" Rob and Megan laughed. "Amelie, don't you understand?" Megan asked. "We invited you to chat, to socialise. I didn't tell you Rob would be here to avoid embarrassing you. We really wanted to meet and speak with you." Megan looked embarrassed. "Because of your Kyle, I knew you wouldn't come if you knew my cousin was here. Rob, if you only knew how jealous Kyle is." "I can believe it," Rob laughed awkwardly. How could anyone not be jealous of such a beautiful girl? Amelie was disappointed, but out of politeness decided to stay and drink tea. Time flew by, and Amelie even found herself having fun. She didn't particularly like Rob, but she had missed spending time with Megan due to her work. Their cheerful chatter made her lose track of time. It's worth mentioning that Rob was quite polite, respectful and well-spoken. He asked intriguing questions and engaged in various topics. Despite Amelie's initial dislike for him, she found him to be quite knowledgeable. She wasn't sure if he was trying to impress her or if he always spoke like this. But either way, Rob's behaviour was commendable. However, Amelie felt a bit unpleasant realising her best friend deceived her by setting her up with a man she barely knew and didn't want to know. Suddenly, Amelie's phone started ringing. Seeing Sweetie on the screen, she decided not to answer, considering Rob's loud voice and even louder laughter. After all, Kyle might get jealous, and he was known for his possessiveness. Calls and messages from Kyle came in one after another, but Amelie couldn't answer. Megan constantly shushed her, saying it was impolite to be engrossed in her phone when Rob was there for her. Amelie stayed at her friend's place until about 10 p.m, even though she had arrived at 6. Finally getting home, the girl changed her clothes and mentally preparing herself, she finally got the courage to call her boyfriend. "Hello, dear," she said. "Hello, Amelie. How are you doing?" Kyle's voice was stern in a way she had never heard before. "I'm fine. I was just at Megan's place. Rachel, our friend from college, came to see her. Remember, I showed you her photo?" "Rachel?" Kyle asked. "Rachel, not Rob?" After these words, Kyle laughed out loud. Amelie had never heard such a thing from him. A stranger's stern voice and even a slight sarcasm, so uncharacteristic for Kyle. "I have eyes and ears everywhere. I purposefully drove by Megan's house. I saw you in the living room with Megan and that blonde man. He's handsome, isn't he? That's the type you like. And it seems he likes you too. He must be rich." "Kyle, how could you even think that? I was visiting my friend. I didn't even know Rob was going to be there. He's her cousin, by the way." "I know everything." Kyle sighed. "Well, I cannot force you to be with me, even though it hurts. I like you, but if your feelings for me have changed, maybe Rob is the one for you." "No, I don't like him," Amelie protested. "You want to know the truth? Megan invited me to meet our mutual friend Rachel, who supposedly came from the capital, and she deceived me. Understand? I couldn't just get up and leave in front of everyone." Kyle sighed. "That's a weak excuse, and quite cliched. I didn't expect that from you." Amelie sighed. "Kyle, please don't argue now. I truly didn't know. We didn't do anything inappropriate. We were just chatting about random topics. Is that wrong? Rob wasn't flirting with me, and I left as soon as I could. If I could have left earlier, I would have." Kyle was silent for a moment, and then hung up. Amelie cried all night, realizing she was now alone. Kyle was strict and serious, especially about relationships. In the morning, the phone rang. Hearing Kyle's voice, Amelie felt a joy she had never felt before. "Hello," Amelie said, her voice trembling with excitement. "Hello," he said and sighed heavily. "I've been thinking for a very long time. I don't want to lose you. I love you. I apologize for being so abrupt." "I love you too!" Amelie practically screamed into the phone, overwhelmed with joy. "Wait, I have something to tell you. Let's meet." Kyle's voice became serious, instilling worry in Amelie. For the first time, Kyle set up a meeting at a cafe, and he ordered, surprisingly, an expensive meal there. Strange. Maybe he got a bonus at work, Amelie thought. Kyle was silent for a while, then took a sip of coffee and began. "Amelie, I love you, but I can't forget what I saw. You were gone all evening. I called. I wrote. But that's not the point. I need your help. Please listen to me." Amelie sighed. "Well, I'm ready." "If you love me, you'll understand. I'm in serious trouble. My grandmother is seriously ill." Amelie was taken aback. "Do you have a grandmother? Really, Kyle? Why didn't you ever mention her? And you've never told me much about your parents." "My parents live far away, so we don't communicate much. However, my grandmother lives nearby and is very dear to me. That's what I wanted to discuss with you. She is disabled and hasn't been able to walk for over 10 years. We had a caregiver until recently, but my finances are strained. Amelie, it's difficult for me to ask this, but since we love each other, I know you won't refuse. You're on vacation, and until I find a new caregiver, could you look after my grandmother? She's wonderful and never says anything unpleasant, but she needs help with cooking and cleaning. I just don't have anyone else to ask." Amelie was surprised by the request, but she couldn't refuse Kyle. She knew deep down that this was the man she would spend her life with, and if he asked for her help, she felt compelled to do it out of love. "All right, Kyle," Amelie said with a smile. "The main thing is that you forgive me. When can I start? How far does she live? Who will drive me there?" "Don't worry about that," Kyle reassured her. "If you're ready tomorrow, I'll pick you up in the morning. I'll drive you to her house before I go to work. You don't need much. It's only for a couple of weeks, until I can arrange for a professional caregiver." Amelie spent the rest of her day in deep thought. She was eager to get closer to Kyle's family, and help his grandmother. From Kyle's stories, she gathered that his grandmother was not a typically elderly woman, but a real lady from a strict family, and the girl was eager to meet her. Amelie was ready early in the morning. She donned her favourite dress to make a good impression and gathered her belongings. Nervously, she questioned her decision, but she had no other choice. She had made a promise, viewing it as a test of their relationship's strength. Kyle arrived shortly after. He greeted Amelie with a smile and said, "Well, are you ready? Grandma is eagerly awaiting for you. She will be delighted to meet you." Amelie sighed, shivering slightly. "Yes, I'm ready. Can you tell me about her during our drive? I'm quite nervous, you know." "Don't worry. She's a kind-hearted woman. While she had a strict upbringing, she doesn't overstep boundaries or ask inappropriate questions." "Thank you, darling. I always knew I could count on you." After 2 hours, they arrived at a small house that gave Amelie an uneasy feeling. The house, reminiscent of those in horror films, was run down with a neglected garden, a skinny dog, and a well. Do such houses still exist? "Kyle, does your grandmother live here?" "Really? These living conditions are not suitable for an elderly person, let alone a person with disability." Amelie was unpleasantly surprised. "Why? Did you grow up in a castle? Grandma likes it here. We offered to move her to an apartment in the city, but she refuses to leave. This is her sanctuary," Kyle replied with a smile. Kyle then took Amelie's bags and they entered the house. To her surprise, the house was spotless. Despite her grandmother's limited mobility, everything was tidy and there was a pleasant aroma. It was clear that the woman was meticulous. Paintings and beautiful statuettes adorned the walls. Upon entering the living room, Amelie was struck by the elderly woman's unique appearance. She had long, white curls, which was unusual for an 85-year-old woman. She looked like an actress and seemed ageless. Only her posture and gaunt figure betrayed her age. "Hello," Amelie greeted with a smile. "Hello, Grandma," Kyle greeted cheerfully. Mrs. Zeiger returned their smiles, and Amelie thought her smile was as beautiful as those of actresses from old films. "Hello, Kyle. What a delightful companion you have. Is this my roommate for the next few weeks?" the elderly woman asked with a smile. Amelie noted her beautiful melodic voice. If she hadn't known Kyle, she might have assumed this lovely woman was a former opera singer. "Yes, it turned out that way, Granny. But I'll take care of the caregiver, so don't worry. Meet Amelie. I'm already late for work," Kyle told his grandmother. After a tender hug with both women, he dashed off. Amelie sat on the edge of the sofa. "Don't worry. I won't harm you. I'm old and can't even walk. If you do as I say, we'll get along fine. My only rule is cleanliness. I've always lived in a clean environment, as has Kyle. I can't stand dust. When it comes to cooking, you must follow my recipe book. I can't eat fatty or fried foods. If all this suits you, then I believe we'll be friends," Mrs. Zeiger said with a gentle smile. "Don't worry, you can rely on me," Amelie said, smiling somewhat stiffly. "Shall I start with unpacking my things?" "Sure, start with unpacking. Then you can begin cleaning my room," Grandma replied with a smile. Amelie looked around in surprise. "Clean your room? But everything is already clean, isn't it?" I was quite surprised at how clean the house was when I walked in. "It's clear you live alone. I assume, my dear, you don't fuss over cleanliness and order. At first glance, everything seems clean. Yes, but I spent my life living with my husband's family, his meticulous mother, his strict military father, and his 2 sisters. That's where I truly learned to keep things in order. I'm so sorry that I can't clean my entire house right now. Look around and see for yourself." Amelie looked embarrassed because she didn't expect to be asked to work right upon arrival, especially to clean an already spotless house. "I'm sorry. Of course I'll help you. It's just that I'm tired. The journey was long and we were stuck in traffic for over an hour. I'll change into my home clothes and start right away." The girls spent the rest of the day cleaning. She discovered that the elderly woman had a specific place for everything. Books were arranged alphabetically, with a separate library for certain types. Statues had designated spots, and every item was meticulously arranged to the centimetre. The house was filled with rare, old books, so precious that they couldn't even be dusted. Everything in that house seemed very strange and even suspicious. From the outside, it appeared to be a humble, run-down house. However, the interior was reminiscent of a chateau, filled with beautiful rare items, such as Asian-style vases, unusual statuettes, and stunning portraits in ornate frames. In the evening they sat down for tea, and Mrs. Zeiger shared her life through the war and the heartbreak of losing her husband to a terrible illness. As she recalled these memories, her eyes filled with sadness and tears. Amelie listened with great interest. Mrs. Zeiger seemed otherworldly to her, kind and open, without a trace of bitterness towards the world, unlike many others. However, some things puzzled her. "I'm surprised that an ordinary man like Kyle could have such a grandmother," Amelie said trustfully. "It is a pleasant surprise. When I met Kyle, I had no idea. He never spoke about his parents or close friends, and he never introduced me to them. Oh, Kyle has always been shy, especially with girls." Mrs. Zeiger smiled. "Perhaps he's too picky. That's why he doesn't rush to introduce his girlfriend to his parents or friends. Besides, his parents live far away. As for his friends, pardon me, my dear, but what if they'll take you away from him? Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Let's go to bed. It's 11 o'clock. We're up late. Today we'll make an exception, but keep in mind I usually go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I'll expect the same from you." Mrs. Zeiger continued. "Well, I'll adjust my routine. I'm always awake at night." Amelie joked and retreated to her room. She spent the night tossing and turning. "Why is Kyle treating me this way?" Amelie pondered. "I have nothing against him, but I'm his girlfriend, not a maid. I understand he's going through a tough time, and I love him very much and want to help, but it's his grandmother, not mine." With these thoughts, Amelie finally drifted off to sleep. Early in the morning, Amelie woke up and realized it was time to prepare breakfast. "I wonder if Mrs. Zeiger is still sleeping," she thought. Just then, she heard cups clinking in the kitchen. As soon as Amelie entered the kitchen, the elderly woman greeted her with a smile. "Good morning. You've slept well into the morning. It's already 9. "Yes, I'm sorry I didn't sleep very well last night," Amelie replied. "I understand, but I wake up at 6 in the morning, and trust me, I never sleep too long because it's not healthy. I didn't want to wake you today, but I'm parched for tea. I haven't even had breakfast because you were still asleep, but I need your help." Despite the kind and calm voice and Mrs. Zeiger's ever-present smile, Amelie was unpleasantly surprised. In silence, she put the kettle on. As she did, a thought crossed her mind. She may not be able to walk, but couldn't she have pressed the kettle button while sitting in her wheelchair? Why did she have to wait for me to wake up? Amelie didn't voice her thoughts out loud. She simply smiled and walked over to the stove. "What can I cook for you? What do you want for breakfast?" "I won't have breakfast. It's too late. I usually eat at 7 in the morning." Mrs. Zeiger replied calmly, while taking her tea and moving towards the living room. Amelie sat down on a chair and began to think. Kyle didn't call last night. Maybe he's just busy, or maybe he just doesn't want to talk. The thought weighed heavily on Amelie. Did he get everything he wanted? He has no money, and that's why he made the woman who loves him his granny's caretaker. So, would he call her now? Tears welled up in Amelie's eyes. She couldn't believe he could be so cruel. Realizing she didn't want to focus on such thoughts, Amelie decided to get to work, especially since Mrs. Zeiger expected wet cleaning every day. With a rag in hand, she made her way to the living room where Mrs. Zeiger was finishing her tea. Seeing Amelie cleaning the shelves with a somewhat sombre expression, Mrs. Zeiger instantly initiated a conversation. How are you finding your new place? Are you comfortable? Do you like it here? She asked with a warm smile. Yes, very much. I'm grateful for your invitation. I feel quite at home here, Amelie replied, albeit a bit stiffly. Mrs. Zeiger then began to share stories about her youth, her love for her husband, and her life experiences. Eventually, Amelie gathered the courage to ask, Has there been any word from Kyle? It's unusual he hasn't contacted us yet. No, he hasn't called, but he's working. That makes sense. Sometimes he's gone for a week. I live out of town, and I'm used to seeing my grandson once a month at most. Really? I never noticed that, sighed Amelie. As dinner time approached, Amelie asked what she should cook. I've told you, I have a notebook with recipes. You should only cook from it, Mrs. Zeiger stated, smiling. Amelie opened the notebook. The names and ingredients were entirely unfamiliar to her. Does an ordinary village woman eat like this? Well, Amelie smiled, what would you like to have today? Up to you, Mrs. Zeiger replied. Cook whatever you can. I have absolutely no preferences for today. I can eat everything from this recipe book. Choosing a dish that seemed understandable, Amelie began to cook. She wasn't a chef, but she could cook decently. Mrs. Zeiger even complimented her. After dinner, Amelie secluded herself in her room. As soon as she lay down on the bed, a flurry of different thoughts began to swarm in her head. Yes, Kyle's grandmother is a kind, calm woman. But why couldn't he hire a caregiver? Sure, it's costly, but I'm his girlfriend. He must understand this could strain our relationship. The thought of their relationship changing distressed her. Now, Amelie felt that her boyfriend was just using her by offering her to be a nanny for his grandmother. Yes, Mrs. Zeiger was a very pleasant woman who constantly asked how Amelie felt. Always tried to make concessions, allowed her to rest when she wanted, but still, the girl often felt out of place in the grand house. She was uncomfortable managing someone else's household. She was fearing she might accidentally break something. Even though Amelie found the company of the elderly woman agreeable, she was ultimately a stranger to her. This made her situation difficult, and the countdown to return home seemed to be the only solace. If Kyle promised to come in 2 weeks, then he must come, Amelie thought, fighting back tears. It's my second day here. Why is he acting this way? He doesn't call or write, not even to his beloved grandmother. I understand if he doesn't care about me, but his own grandmother? I would have left already if it weren't for Mrs. Zeiger. In the following days, Kyle never called or arrived. Surprisingly, Mrs. Zeiger remained calm despite her grandson's lack of contact. Amelie's mind was in a whirl, unsure of what to do. In the evening, she decided to call her best friend, Megan. Listen, how long has it been since we last spoke? Are you upset about that silly joke with Rob? I apologize, I meant no harm. Nobody forced you to be with him, Megan said on the phone. I've already forgotten that meeting, but now I'm in more serious trouble, Amelie said. You're scaring me. Did you break up with Kyle? No, it's much worse than that, Amelie started explaining through her tears, and ended her passionate speech with her confusion about what to do next. Megan, why is he treating me this way? I love him so much. I can't stand it here. His grandmother is a very interesting, sweet and kind person, but our ways of thinking are so different. It's not how I'm used to living. I have a headache from all that endless housework, dusting shelves, rearranging countless books, sweeping up non-existent dust. Her house is already clean, but she still demands this of me. I don't understand it, and I want to leave. She sobbed into the receiver, while Megan began to comfort her. I've been telling you for a long time that it's time to break up with him. Why didn't you want to date Rob? He's calm, good, and has so many great qualities. His parents are wonderful people who dream of him getting married, and he is so smitten with you. He keeps calling and writing to me just to arrange a new meeting with you. It's a pity that you're missing such a match. Amelie sighed. Well, I'm sorry, Megan, but I don't love him, and I can't ever love him. I just don't like him. His jokes are silly. His smile is insincere. He lacks education, and his vulgar humour doesn't appeal to me at all. Kyle is serious, calm, very polite and sensible. They're thoroughly different people. Well, you're too picky, Megan laughed. Then stay with his grandmother. I don't know how to help you, but I can only advise one thing. Pack your things and leave. You're not a servant. You'll find someone else, even if it's not Rob. But someone else. But it shouldn't be Kyle, because not calling the girl you love after asking for her help is utterly despicable. I don't know what will happen next, but I'm giving you a timeless piece of advice. Stay away from guys like that. And with these words, Megan hung up. Maybe Megan is right about something, though if Kyle doesn't contact me in a couple of days, I'll have no choice. I'll have to leave, no matter how hard it is for me. Amelie found it difficult to admit, but she didn't know what to do. Later that evening, Amelie decided to go to bed early, earning Mrs. Zeiger's praise. Despite changing into her nightclothes and lying on the bed, she found herself unable to sleep again, continuously checking her phone. Kyle read her messages, but did not write or call. Is something wrong? Amelie wondered. Has he fallen out of love with me and found someone else? And here I am, unable to even go home. I don't even know if there are cabs here. Overwhelmed, Amelie found herself in tears again, frightened by Kyle's coldness and perceived indifference. She felt the urge to leave, but was torn between her pity for Mrs. Zeiger and resentment towards Kyle. His behaviour surprised and irritated her. She had been happy to help him sincerely, but his coldness was baffling. No, the girl finally decided. Leaving now could be wrong. I promised to stay for 2 weeks. Amelie felt her responsibility to the elderly woman and sympathised with her, for her grandson had been so neglectful. Comforted by these thoughts, she fell asleep peacefully. Upon waking, she checked her mail first thing, but still no messages from Kyle. Disappointment welled up within her, but she had to push it aside and carry on with the housework. Her first week with Mrs. Zeiger passed unnoticed. The more Amelie got used to Mrs. Zeiger, the more she found herself disagreeing with most of the house rules. Mrs. Zeiger was too demanding, imposing strict bedtimes and meal times, prohibiting snacks, and limiting the consumption of flour and tea. Despite her disability, the elderly woman regularly exercised using her hands. She read extensively, familiar with numerous classical works and countless writers and playwrights. She frequently shared with Amelie about the authors she knew. She even penned a small book, though it remained unpublished. However, Amelie felt awkward about Mrs. Zeiger's expectations of her. She was often tasked with reading books aloud, due to Mrs. Zeiger's poor sight. Amelie read aloud Shakespeare, Kafka. She didn't like reading. She never read at home, and it all seemed incredibly boring to her. Amelie also was surprised to discover that the elderly woman was fluent in 2 foreign languages. She could speak both Italian and French. Once, the girl gathered her courage and asked, "Excuse me, Mrs. Zeiger, but I don't understand. You've lived here all your life, so how do you have so many books in foreign languages? Where did you learn these languages?" Mrs. Zeiger laughed and replied, "My dear, you can learn languages at home if you like. It's easy and simple. The main thing is to have books. I love books." Indeed, books were a significant part of Mrs. Zeiger's life. She didn't watch movies at all, despite having a TV in the house. She even forbade Amelie from watching TV, stating that it corrupts the young. Mrs. Zeiger was also displeased with Amelie's habit of using her phone during meals. This often led to minor arguments. Yet Amelie was always waiting for messages from Kyle, so her phone was frequently in her hands. Mrs. Zeiger constantly emphasized the importance of maintaining a neat appearance. Walking around in casual home clothes was considered poor taste. Amelie wasn't allowed to wear her favourite terry cloth robe, which she had brought from home. Even at home, one had to be well dressed. Mrs. Zeiger had always lived by the idea that guests might arrive at any time, and one must always be ready to meet them properly. Despite her advanced age, Mrs. Zeiger always maintained a stylish appearance. She dyed and curled her hair, and she wore tasteful outfits at home. She owned beautiful suits, dresses and shawls that Amelie had never seen in stores. Over time, Amelie began to think that she might eventually adjust to life in this new house, though she found it challenging at the moment. Cooking posed a particular problem. Mrs. Zeiger had numerous allergies, so Amelie couldn't prepare many of the dishes she was accustomed to. However, all the groceries for other dishes were available. Kyle, who promised to bring food all the time, supplied them with food for a whole month in advance, so he wasn't in any hurry to get here. Mrs. Zeiger insisted on balanced meals. The first course should be some type of soup, preferably vegetable-based. The second course would be a light salad and a fish dish. She categorically refused to eat meat or fried fish. Fish had to be either baked, used in a salad, or stewed with vegetables. For dessert, she never ate sweets, believing that sugar was the greatest evil. Instead, she preferred fruit and herbal tea, which she prepared herself. Every evening before bed, Mrs. Zeiger insisted on completing various beauty procedures. Amelie assisted her with face masks, helped arrange her lengthy hair for the night, and even fashioned elaborate hairstyles at her request. Frankly speaking, Amelie often smiled to herself. Are there still such nice grandmothers in this world? Mrs. Zeiger had 2 dogs that needed constant feeding. With some effort, Amelie grew accustomed to these large shepherd dogs. Surprisingly, they accepted her quickly and were quite friendly, making feeding them a joy. Mrs. Zeiger did not have a vegetable garden or flowers to tend to, which was beneficial as Amelie had no experience with such tasks. She had always lived in rented apartments, typically with roommates. There were no stores nearby, making the notion of buying something for tea seem like a distant dream. Amelie missed having sweets at home. The house also had a poor internet connection. Amelie often couldn't connect and had to step outside, circle the house and depend on a neighbour's network to check her messages. She hoped to receive some news from Kyle, but it seemed he had disappeared. And such behaviour seemed to her ungrateful, since she took care of Kyle's grandmother, while she could have spent her vacation with her friends and Megan. At times she wondered, what if things had been different? What if she had accepted Rob's advances? Maybe he wouldn't treat her like a free servant on whom he could dump his duties. But Amelie quickly dismissed these thoughts. After all, she loved Kyle. The second week at Mrs. Zeiger's house passed better for Amelie. They socialised nicely and got along well. Mrs. Zeiger often spoke about herself, but never about Kyle or her daughter, Kyle's mother. As the second week of Amelie's stay in the village ended, she grew accustomed to her surroundings. All this time, there weren't any calls or messages from Kyle. He seemed to have forgotten not only his grandmother, but also his girlfriend. Amelie's vacation was nearing its end, with only 3 days left. She had to return to work soon, but wasn't prepared. There was no food at home, and she hadn't done any shopping. She could only imagine the state of her apartment after being away for 2 weeks. "I haven't heard from Kyle." Mrs. Zeiger shrugged her shoulders. "He must be working very hard, so I have no idea where he is. I can't keep track of him, can I, darling? I'm not his beloved." She laughed at her own words. "Apparently I'm not either," Amelie thought to herself with disappointment, and called him again. Regardless, he was supposed to take her home. However, the indifferent beeps of the phone indicated that no one was expecting her. Meanwhile, Mrs. Zeiger seemed too calm, even indifferent, and this puzzled Amelie much. Doesn't she care about her grandson? What if something happened to him? Amelie spent another restless night, unsure of what to do next. She had planned to go home the next day, but how could she leave now? Finally, she decided to call Megan again. "Megan, I need to go home, but I can't leave Mrs. Zeiger alone either. I have to go to work, but what am I going to do now? Kyle's gone. I can't even call a cab to this village." "I told you, you're the problem. You don't know how to pick people. Get over it," Megan sighed. "Well, I can talk to my friend who is working as a cab driver, if he agrees to pick you up. But let me be honest, not everyone would agree to do it. It's a long drive, 2 hours. It'll be expensive." "What can I do? If I need to, I will pay," Amelie sighed in response. After this conversation, Amelie wondered if it would be right to leave the next day, leaving the elderly woman alone. Can I really leave Mrs. Zeiger? She can't even walk. How has she been managing all this time before? Oh, right, she had a caregiver. It seemed Amelie's heart wasn't as solid as she believed. She couldn't leave a woman in need, and called Megan again. "Megan, you don't need to arrange anything. I'm staying here," Amelie concluded. "Are you sure?" Megan sighed. "Well, stay there. If you like being taken for granted, if you enjoy being an unpaid maid, stay there. Bye, I have to go." With that, Megan hung up the phone. For some reason, Amelie fell asleep peacefully that night, for the first time in 2 weeks. She realised she couldn't change Kyle. He might not love her, even leave her, but she still won't leave a helpless old woman. The next morning she called her boss. "I'm sorry, Mr. Klaus, but I can't return to work on Monday. Can I take a leave of absence?" "I won't allow it. Why didn't you warn me before? Everyone has been waiting for you." "Mr. Klaus, I have a serious situation. My grandmother, well, I'm currently staying with my sick grandmother." "What grandmother?" the boss wondered. "I've known you for many years and you've never mentioned a grandmother before." "Mr. Klaus, my grandmother is bedridden. Her condition is poor right now. I can't leave her. I'll explain everything later, but the situation is critical." The boss on the other end of the line remained silent. "To be honest, I'm shocked," he replied finally, but more gently. "I understand everything, of course, but Amelie, you should have told us sooner. We're short-staffed. 2 employees are already on sick leave. Are you really going to stay with your grandmother?" "Please, I only need 1 week. I'll figure something out," Amelie responded apologetically. Amelie was fortunate that her boss was calm and kind. "Okay, see you in a week," he said and hung up. Amelie smiled for the first time in several days. Thank God I didn't get fired. She then prepared breakfast and invited Mrs. Zeiger to join her. And Amelie herself did not want to eat. Although she had avoided dismissal, still she was sad because of Kyle's attitude. Mrs. Zeiger asked sympathetically, "My dear, what's the matter with you? Are you feeling down?" "To be honest, yes," Amelie confessed, raising her large blue eyes. "Why isn't he here? Did he just decide to give me a lesson? You must understand me. I have nothing against you. I really like you. But why is Kyle doing this? He promised to return in 2 weeks and pick me up. But he didn't, and I'm alone. I don't know what to do. I've quarrelled with my boss, with my best friend. I have nowhere to go. I'm in a strange village which I can't even leave. I didn't want to tell you all this because you're a kind woman. I like you, but I must have seen the real face of your grandson finally." Mrs. Zeiger smiled and advised, "Calm down. This is just one of life's trials. You'll face many more. As for Kyle's absence, believe me, I know my grandson, and it has happened very often that he could just disappear for a couple of months. It's all to do with his work." "What job? He's just a loader," Amelie explained indignantly. "My dear girl, what difference does it make what kind of work a man does? If there is a lot of work, it will always exist. Don't worry. I can tell you one thing. Everything will be all right, and I am sure of it. Better go to relax a little, Amelie." So, the 3rd week with Mrs. Zeiger passed. In the evening, Amelie, as usual, was wiping the table before dinner, while Mrs. Zeiger was reading a book on the sofa. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. The young woman went to the door, opened it, and was stunned. There stood Kyle, calm as ever, with a smile from ear to ear. "Well, hello, darling," he said, smiling and attempting to hug her. Amelie stared back with a hint of hatred and struggled to escape his tight embrace. "Don't touch me, Kyle. You've been gone for 3 weeks," Amelie said sternly. "You left your grandmother. Do you realise she's in a wheelchair and she lives alone in an abandoned village without any stores? And how could you not come for all 3 weeks?" Kyle was taken aback by the tone of his beloved. She had never even raised her voice at him before. "Kyle, you can hate me, you can leave me, but your grandmother? It's astonishing to me. Are there really people as cruel as you?" Amelie continued, and tears began to flow again. She realised she might be being unfair, but she wished she could just hit him, yell at him. "Let's go to the living room," Kyle said, quietly but firmly. "Oh, Kyle, you've finally arrived," Mrs. Zeiger laughed. "Well, thank God, we were already worried." As they sat on the sofa, Mrs. Zeiger began praising Amelie for her kindness and sweetness. Amelie nevertheless remained serious. Given Kyle's neglect, she decided it was time to end their relationship. Although it was awkward to do this in front of his grandmother, she felt it was right for Mrs. Zeiger to know her grandson's behaviour. Calmly, Amelie looked at Kyle and said, "Kyle, we should break up." Kyle flinched, shocked. "What are you talking about? Why would we break up? What's wrong?" "What's wrong?" Amelie retorted. "I called you repeatedly, begging for a response. I cried every night. I received angry calls from my boss. I took unpaid leave and missed work because I couldn't leave your grandmother alone. And I really grew very fond of her. But, nevertheless, I was alone, ignored and unanswered. Did you do this out of anger? Out of revenge? Were you so jealous of me because of Rob that you decided to teach me a lesson? It's cruel and low. You have a wonderful grandmother, yet you choose to leave her alone. Don't you realise that's not normal? I just don't understand how I could have ever loved a man like you, Kyle." With that, Amelie burst into tears. "Honey," said the elderly woman, taking Amelie's hand, "and you, my dear Kyle, both of you, listen carefully. I've told you a little about my life, Amelie. It hasn't been easy. I got married and wartime was very challenging. My husband fought his way through and thankfully returned healthy and alive. But one thing cast a shadow over our family. He was very ill. His illness wasn't physical, but mental, and it was especially darkening our life. After the war, he slowly started to lose his mind. People feared him. They avoided him. They always told me, 'You shouldn't stay with him. This man is sick. Leave him. Be with someone else before you have children.' But I wasn't scared. I even gave birth to 4 wonderful children." Mrs. Zeiger fell silent and wiped her eyes. "You know, I loved him. He was my husband. How could I leave him alone in such a state? I know he loved me. He was seriously ill. But what Amelie is doing to me now is what I had done for him back then. His behaviour always puzzled me. He was constantly fearful, war-obsessed, lashing out at people and seeing enemies everywhere. But can he be blamed? After his illness significantly worsened, our 4th child, Sophia, Kyle's mother, was born. Despite his severe illness, I couldn't abandon him. I had made a vow to always be with him, a promise not just to him, but to God. We pledged eternal love and felt bound to honour it." Mrs. Zeiger sighed heavily. "What I'm trying to tell you, my dears, is that quarrelling is futile. We don't live in times that warrant quarrelling. We should be more enlightened by now. People of the past were tough and sometimes rude, but times have changed, and so must we. One thing I've learned over the years is that true love is deeply sacrificial. We are willing to sacrifice ourselves for the person we love. That's the realization you need to come to now." Kyle got up and paced around the room for a while before turning to Amelie. "Amelie, I'm not a loader. You should have realized that a while ago." "What should I have realized? And how?" Amelie asked, surprised. "I couldn't tell you the truth. You know," Kyle sat back down in his chair and, getting his thoughts together, continued, "Amelie, I haven't been lucky with girls. Yes, I've been successfully running my father's business since I was 20. But I don't invite girls to my house or take them to expensive restaurants. I know they want money more than anything else. Don't take offence. I doubted that about you. I fell in love with you, but I didn't want to be disappointed, and then my friend suggested I pose as an ordinary loader, like in the movies. I saw it as a solution because I didn't want to lose you. Everyone seeks to be loved unconditionally. We all deserve that, right? I was about to tell you the truth, and then I saw you with Rob. You both seemed so happy. I know he's quite wealthy, and I was scared. Amelie, I feared you, like many girls, were after money. That's why I considered ending things when you were with him. But then," he smiled at his grandmother, "I discussed it with my grandmother. She gave me an interesting advice, to ask you to take care of her. She knew that not every young, beautiful girl would agree to sacrifice her personal time, life, friends, as you did." Kyle paused, then added with a smile, "But, as my grandmother says, true love is sacrificial. And you've proved that to me now." Kyle took Amelie's hand and gazed lovingly at her. "I'm sorry. There's one thing I did on my way here. I've bought the ring. Kyle got down on one knee. Amelie, will you marry me? Amelie smiled and said, yes.
Hola, suscríbete a Historias Vitales para no perderte nuevas historias. Mi esposa había estado trabajando en su proyecto especial durante 4 meses ahora. No era su proyecto personal, pero ella era la persona principal y responsable de su éxito. El proyecto estaba diseñado para salvar a su empresa, Bixler Enterprises. Los últimos 4 meses habían sido difíciles porque se vio obligada a trabajar duro. Era importante tanto para ella como para la empresa. Había una buena posibilidad de que Bixler Enterprises quebrara si el proyecto no se completaba. Sarah tenía una licenciatura de Albrecht y un MBA de Wharton. Era la más inteligente de la familia. Yo empecé a trabajar como mecánico de autos justo después de la secundaria y después de 21 años seguía siendo mecánico de autos. No me importaba porque me gustaba el trabajo y pagaba bien. Era suficiente para pagar la universidad de Sarah y criar a 2 hijos. No vivíamos lujosamente, pero estábamos bien. Los niños ya se habían mudado, y las cosas iban bastante bien con nuestros ingresos. Sarah quedó embarazada 3 meses después de casarnos a la edad de 18 años. Durante los primeros años de nuestro matrimonio, vivimos con mis padres. Ellos tenían una gran casa vacía ya que 4 de mis hermanos se habían mudado. Eso significaba que teníamos una niñera mientras Sarah completaba sus primeros años de universidad. Debido a 2 embarazos, la carrera de 4 años le llevó 6 años completarla. Fue difícil, pero lo logró. Siempre tuve trabajo y nunca me faltó trabajo extra si lo necesitaba. Después de que Sarah se graduó de Wharton, alquilamos nuestro propio lugar. Tuvo ofertas de trabajo de varias empresas grandes, pero todas requerían que nos mudáramos. A mí no me importaba, pero Sarah quería quedarse cerca de casa. Por eso decidió trabajar en Bixler Enterprises. Pagaba bien, pero lo más importante, le daba responsabilidad y la oportunidad de avanzar. Sarah era una empleada trabajadora y dedicada. La presentación es el jueves en el Hotel Thyssen en Filadelfia. Tomé unos días libres en el trabajo para ayudarla según fuera necesario. Al final, todo lo que logré fue hacerle algo de comer cuando llegaba a casa. No sabía nada sobre su trabajo, ni tampoco quería saber, los negocios corporativos de alto nivel me aburrían. Empresarios de Europa, Asia y América del Sur venían aquí, la empresa pagaba sus boletos de avión y proporcionaba habitaciones en el Hotel Thyssen mientras estaban aquí. Era caro como el infierno, y por algunas cosas que Sarah había dicho, la empresa estaba sobreestimando sus finanzas. Su presentación era importante para ella, para la empresa y para más de 200 empleados. Hasta el martes por la noche, todo iba bien. Sarah llegó a casa con un traje nuevo, un traje gris con una blusa blanca. Desplegó todo lo que necesitaba en la cama de la habitación de invitados. Cuando se trataba de la limpieza de la casa, ella era normal, pero cuando se trataba del trabajo, era meticulosa. No entendía por qué necesitaba sacar su ropa interior de lujo, pero no dije nada. Además de su traje para la presentación, tenía varios vestidos de cóctel lindos para eventos sociales antes y después del evento. Siempre había evitado tales eventos, pero me sentía obligado a ir con ella si ella quería que lo hiciera. Me agradeció la oferta, pero dijo que no era necesario. Todos los materiales y equipos que necesitaba estaban guardados ordenadamente en el maletero de su Volvo. Antes de salir del trabajo, ella misma conducía el coche para asegurarse de que todo estuviera en perfectas condiciones. Tenía todo el día miércoles para prepararse y toda la noche del miércoles para socializar con sus invitados. Sarah era tan buena en lo que hacía que sentía que habría sido mejor si simplemente me hubiera mantenido alejado de ella. Finalmente, había terminado. Lo había revisado y vuelto a revisar todo. Todo lo que necesitaba ahora era una ducha caliente y una buena noche de sueño. Supongo que mi error fue que empecé a revisar sus cosas después de que Sara comenzara a ducharse. Pensé que estaba ayudando, pero resultó ser lo contrario. Estaba moviendo cosas en la cama cuando un pequeño sobre blanco cayó del bolsillo lateral de su bolso de maquillaje. Una carta de una farmacia, pero no del tipo que solemos usar. Dentro había 10 pastillas. No tenía idea de qué era, Pren, y las instrucciones eran confusas. Si es necesario, tomar una pastilla y luego una segunda pastilla 12 horas después. Pensé que podría ser algo que ella había conseguido para la ansiedad o los nervios, pero las instrucciones no tenían sentido. La receta estaba escrita a su nombre el lunes. Volví a poner el sobre en su lugar mientras ella terminaba de ducharse. Decidí que quería saber más sobre Pren antes de contarle sobre ello. Por supuesto, si lo mencionaba, significaría que estaba revisando sus cosas. Odio los dilemas. Mientras Sara se preparaba para dormir, fui a nuestro ordenador doméstico y busqué. 10 minutos después, me uní a mi esposa bajo las sábanas. Pasé toda la noche despierto, preguntándome por qué mi esposa había recogido una receta para la píldora del día después, especialmente después de que me hicieran una vasectomía hace 10 años. A la mañana siguiente, me levanté temprano, pero no estaba descansado. Di un largo paseo, esperando que despejara mi mente. Me dirigí hacia casa con reticencia, temiendo lo que podría hacer o decir cuando llegara allí. Mi hijo Joe se unió a la Marina después de la escuela secundaria y estaba en su primer año en San Diego. Nuestra hija Gloria se casó con su amor de la infancia el año pasado y acababa de mudarse a Dallas. Eso dejaba solo a Sara y a mí. Echaba de menos a los niños, pero esperaba envejecer con mi esposa. Ella era la única mujer que me había interesado, y ahora todo estaba. Si Sara estaba teniendo una aventura, lo ocultaba bien. Por supuesto, nunca la vigilé. Nunca miré sus correos electrónicos o llamadas telefónicas. No tenía razones para hacerlo. No tenía forma de saber qué estaba haciendo en el trabajo o después del trabajo. Confiaba en ella completamente. Ion, ¿dónde demonios has estado? ¿Quieres huevos o algo? No, solo café. No me sentía con muchas ganas de hablar. ¿Qué pasa, cariño? Solo son 3 días. Puedes venir si quieres, pero te aburrirás como una ostra. No, realmente no quiero ir, pero odio dejarte sola. Me preocupo cuando no estás aquí. Es muy dulce, querido, pero estará bien. No voy a salir del hotel en todo este tiempo. Pasaré la mayor parte del día asegurándome de que la sala de conferencias esté lista, y esta noche tendré una agradable charla con nuestros posibles clientes. Mañana, probablemente ni siquiera tendré la oportunidad de ir al baño. Llegaré a casa lo más temprano posible el viernes, te prometo un gran fin de semana si sabes a lo que me refiero. Todo eso suena bien, pero no puedes culparme por preocuparme. Soy un mecánico de autos, y tengo una esposa hermosa y exitosa. A veces tengo la sensación de que estás menos interesada en mejorar nuestra situación familiar que en avanzar en tu carrera. Detente, maldita sea, Ion. Siempre he respetado lo que haces para ganarte la vida y nunca he insinuado lo contrario. Criaste a 2 grandes niños y me pusiste a través de la universidad. Eres un gran esposo, un gran padre y un buen proveedor, y nunca olvides eso. Terminé mi café mientras ella recogía la mesa. ¿Quieres que te llame? No, no es una buena idea. Tendré el móvil apagado, y voy a apagar el teléfono de la habitación por la noche para poder dormir. Te llamaré siempre que pueda. La ayudé a cargar el coche, era tan meticulosa con eso como con todo lo demás. Trabajando, le llevaría 3 horas llegar al Hotel Dicen. Me quedé en el porche y la vi marcharse. No me molesté en preguntarle por las pastillas. Pasé el resto de la mañana en el porche. No recuerdo haberme preocupado tanto como ahora. Me sentía pequeño e insignificante. Me sentía fuera de mi liga. Era un tipo de pueblo con un trabajo mediocre y una esposa exitosa. Era una combinación equivocada. Debería haberlo notado antes. Me sentía estúpido. El mejor traje que tenía era una chaqueta azul y un par de pantalones. Al menos tenía algunas corbatas, aunque tenían 10 años de antigüedad. Acababa de terminar de vestirme cuando sonó el teléfono fijo. Oye, cariño, solo quería avisarte de que llegué bien. ¿Tuviste un buen viaje? Supongo que el tráfico no estaba demasiado denso. Estuvo bien. Te llamaré esta noche. Ahora tengo que irme. Estoy en la habitación 714, Sara. Puedo estar en casa de mis padres o en la de mis hermanos esta noche si quieres llamarme a mi móvil. De acuerdo. Suena el teléfono móvil. Te quiero, tengo que irme. Me tomé mi tiempo para llegar a Filadelfia. No fui directo al Lisen, primero me detuve y compré un filete con queso. Prometí hacer una larga noche. No estaba seguro de qué iba a hacer. Estacioné en el garaje del hotel y simplemente esperé. Tarde o temprano, tenía que entrar en el hotel. Simplemente no podía decidir cuándo hacerlo. El sonido de mi teléfono celular me ayudó a tomar mi decisión. Ion, solo quería avisarte de que todo se ha arreglado. Ahora voy a bajar para encontrarme con algunas personas y cenar. No olvidaste nada, ¿verdad? No, todo está bien. Tengo todo en mi habitación para mañana. ¿Necesitas algo? No, Ion, relájate. Voy a apagar mi teléfono. Te llamaré mañana por la mañana. ¿De acuerdo? Ríe, diviértete. No es divertido, Ion, es trabajo. No parecía estar demasiado fuera de lugar. El vestíbulo, el restaurante y las salas de conferencias estaban llenos de gente, así que pude pasar desapercibido. Había un folleto pequeño y bonito que mostraba el diseño de todas las habitaciones del hotel. Me paseé por las diferentes habitaciones y me detuve en las paredes, mirando alrededor entre la multitud. No tenía ni idea de qué haría si Sara me veía. Lo averiguaría si y cuando eso sucediera. Encontré un tablero de eventos que enumeraba todas las habitaciones que estaban siendo utilizadas por los diversos grupos. Bixler Enterprises no tenía habitaciones disponibles para el miércoles por la noche. Esto me pareció interesante. Sara había dicho que no iba a salir del hotel, pero ahora no estaba tan seguro de eso. Había 3 comedores, familiar, informal y de alta cocina. A Sara no le gustaba mucho cenar con niños, así que fui primero al comedor informal. Solo me llevó 5 minutos asegurarme de que no estaba allí. Tuve mejor suerte en el salón gourmet, era una acogedora mesita encajada en la esquina, el tipo de mesa que la gente reserva para tener un encuentro privado. Sara llevaba un vestido de cóctel negro con un escote pronunciado y perlas, se veía elegante y su acompañante parecía apreciarlo. Conocía a algunas personas con las que trabajaba Sara, y él no era una de ellas. Me resultaba familiar, pero no había forma de que pudiera recordarlo. Había muchas sillas libres, así que no tuve problemas para cruzar la sala. Había velas y pequeños candelabros de cristal en las mesas. Apagué la mía y le dije al camarero que me molestaba por el glaucoma. Pedí el plato de pollo de siempre y me acomodé. El camarero me sirvió el café por tercera vez. Disculpe, el tipo en la mesa de enfrente me parece muy familiar. ¿Sabes quién es? Sí, ese es Malcolm Eugene Foote. Es miembro del Consejo Municipal, se espera que se postule para el Congreso en los próximos años. ¿Es esa su esposa con él? Es muy bonita. No, esta es la primera vez que la veo. Siempre usa esa mesa para señoras especiales, si me entiende. Simplemente le sonreí y pedí la cuenta. Nunca había visto a Sara tan sensual con un hombre antes. Parecía captar cada palabra que decía, como si fuera Dios o algo así. No estaban haciendo nada inapropiado, pero tampoco era platónico ni profesional. Cuando me fui, estaban terminando su segunda botella de vino. Ahora entendía por qué se había llevado su lencería elegante. Me acomodé en una esquina del vestíbulo para que no me vieran. 10 minutos después, salieron del restaurante. Ella le tomaba la mano mientras caminaban por el vestíbulo hacia el ascensor. Observé cuidadosamente los indicadores de piso. Que el ascensor se detuviera en el tercer piso era una buena señal, significaba que no lo había llevado a su habitación. Era una mala señal cuando el ascensor no llegaba al séptimo piso, significaba que ella fue a su habitación. Por si acaso me equivocaba en algo, me senté en el vestíbulo y observé el ascensor durante 1 hora. La gente entraba y salía, pero Sara no estaba entre ellos. Saqué mi maleta vacía del coche y me dirigí al mostrador de recepción. Aunque podía demostrar que era su esposo, me costó trabajo conseguir una tarjeta llave. Se dieron después de llamar a la habitación, pero nadie respondió. Finalmente, estaba en camino a la habitación 714 con la tarjeta llave. Ni siquiera encendí las luces al principio, simplemente me senté en la oscuridad de la habitación durante más de 1 hora. No fue difícil asegurarme de que no regresara a la habitación. Primero, empacé todas sus ropas y pertenencias personales. No dejé nada atrás. Revisé el paquete de Preven, todavía quedaban 10 pastillas en el tocador. De manera muy ordenada, estaban todos los artículos que necesitaría para su presentación al día siguiente. Comencé a llenar la maleta. Había 24 carpetas promocionales especialmente encuadernadas y otras 20 carpetas regulares, todas ellas fueron a la maleta. Un proyector digital fue lo siguiente, seguido de una computadora portátil. Tomé su bolso y su celular, que había dejado en la habitación. Todo lo que tenía consigo era un bolso de mano y probablemente un tubo de lápiz labial. Di una vuelta por la habitación tan cuidadosamente como lo hizo ella para asegurarme de no perder nada. Una vez satisfecho, dejé las llaves del coche y mi anillo de bodas en el tocador. Aparte de esos 2 objetos, la habitación estaba completamente vacía. El ascensor se dirigió directamente al estacionamiento, no tuve problemas para llevar 2 maletas, y 20 minutos después, estaba en la autopista rumbo al norte. Pasaban las 3 de la madrugada, no tenía idea de que había pasado tanto tiempo. 1 hora o 2 después, sonó mi teléfono celular, la identificación de llamadas mostraba el número del Listen. ¿Ion? Sí, ¿dónde estás? Estaré en casa pronto. Eso fue todo lo que dije. Hubo silencio en el otro extremo de la línea. Los vendedores tienen un viejo dicho, el primero que habla pierde. Pareció una eternidad antes de que ella hablara. Ion, lo siento. No preguntó nada y simplemente colgó. Apagué mi teléfono, era obvio que había regresado a su habitación. Más tarde ese día, tenía que dar una presentación que salvaría a su empresa y le daría un ascenso. Metí las maletas en el desván del garaje. Sara nunca iba allí y nunca pensó en buscar algo allí. Por supuesto, en este punto, estoy bastante seguro de que no importaba. Primero, recogí todas mis ropas y pertenencias personales. La mayoría de los hombres tienen sus propias herramientas, generalmente es un requisito para el trabajo. Pasé por la tienda, cargué las mías en el Subaru y recogí mi último cheque de pago. Para entonces, los bancos ya estaban abiertos, no tuve que hacer ninguna manipulación financiera complicada. Simplemente retiré todo el dinero de mis cuentas. Almorcé en Hagerstown, Maryland. Tenía suficiente dinero para vivir durante unos años, pero sabía que estaría buscando trabajo muy pronto. Sara y yo éramos parecidos en eso de que a ambos nos encantaba trabajar. La voy a extrañar. Pasé un par de horas en las cuevas del Uray y alquilé una habitación cerca de Whitewell. No tenía idea de qué iba a hacer. Era sábado, y me encontré sentado en el acuario de Chattanooga, observando la naturaleza que nunca había visto antes. Pasé unas horas simplemente relajándome y decidí que era un buen lugar para estar. Compré un pase anual para el acuario y, para la hora de la cena, tenía un lugar donde quedarme. Era un remolque móvil en el parque, pero estaba amueblado y era económico. No necesitaba mucho. La primera cosa que haría el lunes por la mañana sería conseguir un trabajo. Un buen hombre de mantenimiento siempre puede conseguir un trabajo, especialmente si está dispuesto a trabajar duro. Podría permanecer discreto hasta que fuera el momento de renovar mi licencia de conducir o las etiquetas del coche, me preocuparé por eso cuando llegue el momento. El domingo por la tarde, llamé a Gloria. Me sentí obligado a informarle sobre lo que estaba sucediendo, pero Sara ya se lo había contado. Fue bastante franca con Gloria sobre lo que había pasado, dijo que había engañado, que la sorprendí, que me fui y que ella perdió su trabajo. Me sentí mal porque ella perdió su trabajo, pero ese era el precio que tenía que pagar. Le pedí a Gloria que le dijera a Josh lo que estaba sucediendo la próxima vez que hablara con él. También le dije que la llamaría aproximadamente una vez al mes para verificar cómo iban las cosas. No le dije dónde estaba. Para el mediodía del día siguiente, tenía un trabajo. En realidad, estaba a poca distancia del parque de remolques, con el Waffle House a mitad de camino. ¿Qué más podría querer un hombre? No sé cómo manejaron el papeleo, pero me estaban pagando $20 por hora sin hacer preguntas. Estaba feliz, y ellos también. Ni siquiera tendría que tocar el dinero que traje conmigo. Unos 2 meses después, Gloria me informó que Sara se había mudado de la casa y estaba viviendo con sus padres. Gloria no sabía nada más, pero estaba feliz de que estuviera estable y le estuviera yendo bien. Josh me llamó desde San Diego solo para informarme que iba a hacer un crucero. Era técnico en aviónica en un portaaviones, intentó explicar qué hacía exactamente, pero estaba más allá de mi comprensión. Nunca supe mucho sobre cosas técnicas. Ambos tuvieron cuidado de no decir nada malo sobre su madre, aprecié eso. Después de eso, todo siguió como siempre. Comencé a hablar con Gloria al menos semanalmente, Josh y yo comenzamos a enviar correos electrónicos regularmente. Gloria hablaba regularmente con Sara, pero decía muy poco sobre lo que estaba haciendo o dónde estaba. Nunca presenté la solicitud de divorcio, y parece que Sara tampoco lo hizo. Tengo una licencia de conducir de Tennessee y las etiquetas en el Subaru. Comencé a frecuentar un bar local un par de veces al mes y tuve encuentros casuales, 2 mujeres se alternaban como mis compañeras nocturnas regulares. No buscaban compromisos, y yo tampoco, parecía funcionar bien para todos nosotros. La vida era buena. Eso fue hace mucho tiempo, y gradualmente olvidé a Sara. Con el tiempo, el Subaru comenzó a darme problemas, había olvidado cuánto tiempo había pasado. Tenía más de 200,000 millas. Estaba reflexionando sobre esto con una jarra de cerveza un día cuando me di cuenta de que habían pasado casi 5 años desde que me fui de casa. Mantuve un contacto cercano con ambos hijos, Gloria ya tenía 2 hijos propios en este momento y quería que los visitara. Josh casi se casó con una mujer tailandesa, pero en el último momento, se negó. Por lo general, trabajaba 6 días a la semana y usaba el domingo para recuperarme del sábado por la noche, no había ninguna buena razón para que alguien llamara a la puerta de mi remolque a las 6 de la mañana de un viernes. Su grosería fue recompensada por un hombre medio desnudo abriendo la puerta, los calzoncillos del día son repugnantes, y la dama en la puerta, juzgando por la expresión en su rostro, estuvo de acuerdo conmigo. Ella apartó la mirada, pero su compañero no parecía impresionado. Norm habría usado pantalones, pero en un momento como este, los invitados me molestaron. Estamos buscando a John Terrell. No los conozco. Me llamo David Simmons, y esta es mi esposa Mara. Tenemos un problema y esperamos que nos puedas ayudar. Lo siento mucho, no trabajo a altas horas de la noche. Si necesitan algo relacionado con su auto, tendrán que ir a la tienda. Esto provocó varias miradas en blanco y finalmente una respuesta. No tiene nada que ver con tu trabajo, es más un problema personal. ¿Podemos entrar? El interior del remolque lucía desordenado, rara vez tenía invitados, así que rara vez lo limpiaba. Incluso mis novias insistían en que fuéramos a su lugar. Hagan como en su casa, déjenme ponerme los pantalones enseguida. Al entrar en el dormitorio, dejé la puerta abierta solo para mostrarles lo hospitalario que soy. También me puse una camisa. ¿Les gustaría tomar café? Solo tomará unos 10 minutos. Aparté algunas cosas del sofá para que pudieran sentarse. No hubo respuesta a la pregunta del café. Tenemos una hija adoptiva de 4 años y otra de 2 que necesita un trasplante de médula ósea, y esperamos que nos puedas ayudar. Estamos dispuestos a pagarte si es necesario. ¿Con mi médula ósea? No, queremos usarla y estamos dispuestos a compensarte por cualquier inconveniente. Creo que quieren comprarla. Estaba actuando como un listillo, y de repente me di cuenta de ello. Estas personas eran serias, tenían un problema real y estaban buscando ayuda. Lo siento mucho, no quise interrumpir. Por favor, continúen. Nuestra mejor oportunidad de encontrar un donante es un familiar cercano. Eres nuestra mejor esperanza. Mira esto. No quiero ser un grosero, pero creo que se equivocaron de persona. ¿Cuándo nació su hija? Cumplirá 5 años en julio. Marche Simons habló por primera vez, y sonó sincera. Odio ser el portador de malas noticias, pero me hice una vasectomía hace 15 años. No hay forma de que pueda ser su padre. ¿Por qué tu nombre estaba en el certificado de nacimiento? No puedo responder eso, tal vez deberían preguntarle a su madre. Esa afirmación fue recibida con silencio. Sentí pena por estas personas, pero no sabía cómo ayudarles. ¿Cuál es el nombre de la madre? Sarah Lise Terrell. No encontraba las palabras. Tal vez no debería haber tomado esas malditas pastillas de ella, por supuesto, entonces esas personas no tendrían una hija en absoluto. Todo lo que pensaba que había superado el dolor, y aquí está de nuevo, viejos recuerdos de mi esposa teniendo relaciones sexuales con ese maldito político de Filadelfia. Estaba empezando a olvidarlo todo, y ahora estaba de vuelta. Maldita sea. Ahora entiendo y pido disculpas por mi grosería e insensibilidad. Haré todo lo que esté en mi poder para ayudarles. En primer lugar, porque no puede Sara hacerse un trasplante de médula ósea. Médicamente, no puede. ¿Por qué no? Es madre, tiene que ser una donante adecuada. Ella es una donante adecuada, pero está demasiado enferma. Los médicos se negaron siquiera a considerar utilizarla. ¿Enferma de qué? Está muriendo de insuficiencia hepática. Le quedan menos de 6 meses de vida. Esto no tiene sentido. Siempre ha estado perfectamente sana. Además, no creo que un hígado enfermo le impida donar médula ósea. El hospital no aceptará su firma en el formulario de consentimiento. ¿Estás diciendo que hay algo mal en su cabeza? Ambos me miraron en silencio, sabían la respuesta, pero no querían decirlo. En ese momento, no quería que se sintieran aún más incómodos. Hace 10 minutos, no me importaban, pero ahora sentía que tenía que protegerlos y ayudarlos. ¿Cómo sucedió esto? ¿Podría alguno de mis hijos ayudar? Quizás, pero pensamos que eras nuestra mejor esperanza. ¿Por qué no van tras su padre, su verdadero padre? Pensamos que eras tú. No tenemos ni idea de quién más podría ser. Sara no nos dijo nada sobre otro posible padre. De hecho, ella no estaba en condiciones de explicar nada, agregó Mara. Obtuvimos la mayoría de nuestra información de la agencia de adopción. Tuve que preparar café y hacer pis, permítanme un momento. Dejé a mis invitados sentados mientras preparaba el café. Solo tomó unos minutos. Mientras se preparaba, fui al baño, algo que necesitaba hacer urgentemente. Traté de ser discreto, ya había avergonzado lo suficiente a Mara. ¿Dónde viven? En Westchester, Pensilvania. Les haré una oferta. Si les digo quién es el verdadero padre de su hija, deben prometerme que lo perseguirán sin descanso hasta obtener lo que desean. ¿De qué estás hablando? El padre de su hija es un político prominente en Pensilvania. Por supuesto, negará todo y probablemente les proporcionará documentos legales para detener sus esfuerzos. Si acuerdan presionar lo suficiente para que él admita que la niña es suya, podrán avergonzarlo y obligarlo a hacerse un trasplante de médula ósea. Eso es lo que quieren, ¿verdad? Sí, claro, pero ¿cómo hacemos eso? No lo sé. Soy mecánico. Trabajo con metal para ganarme la vida. Creo que la mejor manera sería utilizar la televisión, la radio y los periódicos. Los políticos harán cualquier cosa para evitar una mala publicidad. ¿Tienen amigos que puedan ayudar? Bueno, ahora ambos estaban sonriendo. Debo haber dicho algo que les dio esperanza. Creo que podemos hacer esto. ¿Quién demonios es él? Malcolm Eugene Foote. Se postula para el Senado de los Estados Unidos. Apuesto a que hará cualquier cosa para evitar una mala publicidad. El café estaba listo, pero David y Marchen no podían esperar para llegar a casa. Antes de irse, les dije cómo ponerse en contacto con Gloria y Josh en caso de que los necesitaran. Estaba seguro de que ayudarían. También les pedí que me dijeran dónde estaba Sarah. Probablemente estaría en Pensacola antes de que ellos regresaran a Westchester. Me corté el pelo y compré una camisa nueva. Sarah era una tramposa que arruinó mi vida, pero aún así quería lucir bien cuando la viera. Era otro remolque, pero esta vez era un bonito doble nuevo. Allí estaba su Volvo con una llanta desinflada y un parabrisas roto. La mujer que abrió la puerta no era Sarah. Parecía que la habían empapado fuerte y la habían dejado empapada. Tenía al menos 45, tal vez 50, y debió haber tenido una vida difícil. La falta de maquillaje no ayudaba, y simplemente se veía horrible. No tuve la oportunidad de abrir la boca. Caray, si no es John Terrell. Nunca esperé verte aquí. Tuve que usar la vieja línea, me estás poniendo en desventaja. Sherry Hart. Pasa, entra. ¿Quieres una cerveza? No, pero gracias. Estoy aquí para ver a Sarah. Sherry cruzó la habitación y se detuvo en el buffet del comedor. Aquí está, John. Mírala todo lo que quieras. Su mano señalaba una urna de latón que estaba en el centro del buffet vacío. Supongo que llegué demasiado tarde. No me moví, solo me quedé mirando el contenedor frente a mí. ¿Puedo tomar una cerveza ahora? Sarah se mudó a Pensacola después de dar a su bebé en adopción. Compró el remolque con el dinero que recibió de Bixler Enterprises después de que la despidieron. Tenía una participación en las ganancias, 401k, y vacaciones y días de enfermedad. Eventualmente, consiguió un trabajo en una fábrica local de prendas de vestir donde trabajaba en el departamento de envíos. Allí fue donde conoció a Sherry. Sherry alquilaba una habitación de Sarah. Cada centavo que Sarah ganaba iba para el alcohol. Empezó con vino y gradualmente pasó a bebidas más fuertes, las más baratas. Eventualmente, perdió su trabajo debido a su alcoholismo y se vio obligada a usar sus ahorros. Nunca salió con nadie ni salió a ningún lado. Sherry se quedó con ella, pagó sus servicios públicos y compró alimentos que Sarah no comía. Le llevó más de 3 años quitarse la vida. Increíblemente, ella tenía un testamento y me dejó un doble remolque y un Volvo. Sherry explicó que Sarah estaba tan angustiada por lo que había hecho que simplemente se rindió. No intentó evitar el embarazo ni siquiera terminarlo. La adopción se había arreglado meses antes de que naciera el bebé. Nunca volvió a trabajar, excepto en los trabajos clandestinos que hacía mal. Sherry dijo que Sarah no parecía tener ambición ni propósito en la vida. Sarah hablaba mucho de mí pero tenía miedo de intentar contactarme. Gloria le dio mi número, pero nunca me llamó. Era como si su aventura de una noche la hubiera lastimado más a ella que a mí. Estuve allí durante 2 semanas y luego vendí el remolque de Sherry por $1 y obtuve $3.000 por el Volvo. 2 días después, estaba en Westchester visitando a mis nuevos amigos David y Marche. Malcolm Eugene Foote resistió al principio, pero David y Marche lo presionaron hasta que cedió. Insistió en pruebas de ADN, que demostraron que era el padre. Para salvar la cara, más o menos lo obligaron a someterse a un trasplante de médula ósea, que fue exitoso. La carrera política y la vida familiar de Malcolm no dejaron una impresión favorable. Su caída en las encuestas fue tan rápida que el partido lo reemplazó por otro candidato unos meses antes de las elecciones. Su esposa solicitó el divorcio y fue muy pública al respecto. Sara y yo estamos viajando ahora a Dallas para ver a Gloria y a mis nietos. No sé cuánto tiempo mantendré a Sara conmigo, probablemente hasta que tenga a alguien.